If we can work on the extraneous talking while people are up here, that would be great. Living Life Against the Wind, about his father's life, career, and personal struggles. Please welcome Toastmaster Josh Harris.
I wish I didn't know now what I didn't know then. We were running against the wind. Members of the head table, fellow Toastmasters, good morning. That one line from that song, I think, is one of the most prophetic and interestingly deep lyrics I've ever heard in music. Now, every time I hear the song Against the Wind by Bob Seger, I think of my father. Why? Because it's him who's playing all the piano throughout the entire song, including those famous solos, which I think of him the most for. See, his whole career was in music. And I always found this very interesting. Growing up, he's flying off to these amazing places to record. He was mostly known for doing session work, which those who are in the music industry might know this. Everybody else might be surprised. Yeah, the people you see in the band may not actually be good enough to put the tracks down. So the producers hire good musicians, which apparently my father was one of them. Over his career, he recorded with, now this is a partial reading, ABBA, Stephen Stills, Dion, John Sebastian, The Doors, Joe Walsh, Aerosmith. Fun fact on Aerosmith, he was on the only album that didn't go platinum. And Warrant, and a bunch others. He did a little bit of work actually in some groups. He was in the Southern Hillman Furay Band. This is all long before I'm born, so don't ask me questions about it. And also a group called Manassas, which was the group that Stephen Stills formed after Crosby, Stills, Nash & Young broke up. He was in that rock and roll space. Of course, over time, you get older, you have a kid, that's me, only child. So rock and roll wasn't as much fun, although if he could record, he could. He went into the Broadway music business. So this is kind of where I, as elementary school, got to know him a little bit more. When we were in South Florida, every time shows like Phantom of the Opera come through, he would be hired as the conductor, sometimes running a 3-month span from Miami, Fort Lauderdale, all the way up to West Palm Beach. He then got to become part of the development crew of a show called Smokey Joe's Cafe, and onward became the touring director for its musical version that was up, always came through Orlando. I got to find all kinds of cool memorabilia. So this was the version of my dad that I got to know. Certainly growing up all the way through high school. My dad died last year, and this is the version that I think everyone likes to remember him from. Unfortunately, his life was a bit more complicated than this. You see, as I would learn much later on in life, as talking to various doctors and other professionals, that level of musical talent, that level of creativity, does not come without cost. In the case of my father, it was mental illness. Now, I didn't know about this. See, that's that line, I wish I didn't know now what I didn't know then. Growing up pretty much from earliest memories through middle school, the thought that my father would have a condition that would ultimately put him on mental disability, make him unable to even live by himself for his latter 20 years of his life, was just not a reality. We went to baseball games, we traveled. He was a great father. But then, as Smokey Joe's Cafe was winding down, I think the whole toll and time of almost compound interest paid forward. I didn't understand it. I figured he would get better. My grandmother died when I was about 18 years old, and now I had to take over because remember that only child thing? It was me. I had a wonderful aunt, still have it, she's still around up in New York, who helped me from a distance. All those documents, powers of attorney, healthcare surrogate. Yeah, at 18, I'm having to figure all that fun stuff out. Talking to doctors and all this wonderful stuff. This is the disconnect. Now I have to become essentially the caregiver. Has anybody ever had that where you have to become the caregiver for your parents? Yeah, it's a crazy feeling, and I don't know what to say because it probably happens to most of us. You know, aging is kind of universal. That's one of the interesting things about this. I watched my father age earlier than he should have given his years. And I had to probably account for things that I, in my 20s, shouldn't have to. Yet I will admit this. As I look back at my dad's life, I'm fairly at peace with everything. And this took a very long time to do. Literally probably 20 years. As you can imagine, somebody who's been diagnosed with severe depression, bipolar, and then eventually really schizophrenia, not an easy diagnosis to manage. And no offense to the mental health profession or psychiatrists, but we'll try this medication, let's try that. It might as well have just been spinning a wheel of roulette. They did have him stabilized and he had many good years. In fact, in his final years, something he told me completely changed. Like one conversation changed my whole view. Maybe even gave my freedom away from my own anger or discontent over this whole circumstance. He recognized to himself that he is paying the price for the great life he gets to live. The stories, the crazy stuff that I couldn't even tell from this stage. He got to do it, and he knew he was basically going to have to pay for it. And his later year infirmity, everything he went through was that cost. It's not a lot of solace to me having to manage this and having candidly losing I didn't lose my father last year. I lost him when I was in high school, when he succumbed to the illness. His body finally passed in 2023. But I knew for him, he lived a mission accomplished. He was living his whole life against the wind. And just like that song, listen to the lyrics. You get older and older, and you begin to wonder what it really was like when you were younger and you didn't get to experience all that. So, as you go forward today, think about your family, think about yourself, think about your kids, especially those of you who have them or will have them. You never know what's going to happen. Be grateful for what you have. And if you have to live life against the wind, live it as best you can. Fellow Toastmasters.